The sun was rising over the city as Maya adjusted the straps of her flight attendant uniform and stepped into the terminal. Flight 472 was scheduled to leave in just over an hour, and Maya always made it a point to arrive early. She liked the quiet before passengers arrived, the gentle hum of the airport, and the way she could walk through the cabin imagining the smooth journey ahead. She had been a flight attendant for 5 years, and in that time she had seen all kinds of passengers. Some were polite, some were rude, and a few were outright demanding. But she always believed in treating everyone with kindness. Today, however, she felt a subtle tension in the air, as though something was going to be different. As she walked down the aisle of Flight 472, checking the seats and ensuring everything was in place, she noticed a family boarding. Robert Collins, a man in his late 40s, walked with calm authority. He wore a crisp suit and carried a leather briefcase. Beside him were 3 children, 2 girls around 10 years old and a boy who could not have been more than 6. The triplets' dark hair glimmered under the cabin lights, and their eyes sparkled with curiosity as they looked around. "Good morning," Maya said warmly as she approached them. "Welcome aboard Flight 472. Please let me know if you need any help with your seats." The children smiled politely. Ava, the older twin, gave a small nod, while Zoe's fingers fiddled with the strap of her backpack. Eli, the youngest, clutched his father's hand tightly, a mix of excitement and nervousness in his wide eyes. Robert offered a reassuring smile. "We're ready," he said calmly. "Thank you." Maya guided them to their seats in the first-class section, making sure Eli was comfortably seated and buckled in. She always took extra care with young children on flights, knowing that a small gesture could make them feel safe. As she adjusted the tray table for Eli, she noticed another flight attendant glancing their way. There was a subtle smirk on her face, and she whispered something to a colleague. Maya didn't catch the words, but something about it made her uneasy. She had encountered jealousy and small rivalries among her colleagues before, but this felt different, sharper, colder. Eli nodded, his small hands gripping the edge of his seat. "I think so," he said, his voice barely audible. Maya smiled, patting his shoulder gently. "You're going to have a nice flight," she said. "We'll make sure of that." As the cabin filled with passengers, the tension she felt earlier seemed to grow. Some passengers were chatting softly, others scrolling through their devices, but the energy in the air felt heavy. Maya moved through the aisle, offering assistance and checking that everyone had their seatbelts fastened. She noticed the same flight attendant who had whispered earlier now hovering near the Collins family, her expression unreadable. Maya's instincts told her to pay attention. She had learned over the years that subtle cues often revealed bigger problems. The plane doors closed and the safety demonstration began. Maya stood at the front, speaking clearly and calmly, guiding passengers through the safety protocols. Her voice carried warmth, a gentle confidence that seemed to put everyone at ease. Even Eli watched with wide eyes, fascinated by the small safety masks and life vests. Once the demonstration ended, Maya returned to the Collins row to offer drinks and snacks. She handed Eli a juice box, smiling softly. "There you go, Eli," she said. "I hope you like apple juice." Eli's eyes lit up. "Thank you," he whispered. That's when Maya noticed the other flight attendant step forward. She leaned slightly toward Eli, her voice dripping with false concern. "Are you sure you should be sitting here?" she said quietly, loud enough for Maya to hear. "Maybe this seat isn't right for you." Eli looked confused, glancing at his father. Ava and Zoe exchanged worried glances. Maya felt a knot tighten in her stomach. She knew this was no longer about a simple seating issue. It was about the triplets. "Sir," Maya said calmly, standing beside the children. "They are fine here. Please don't worry. Everything is okay." The other flight attendant scoffed but didn't respond further, retreating a few steps. Maya stayed near the Collins children, keeping her presence close and reassuring. Eli's small hand found hers, squeezing gently. Ava whispered, "Thank you," and Zoe gave a shy smile. Maya realized that her role on this flight had changed. She was no longer just a flight attendant. She had become a protector. She moved discreetly through the cabin, serving drinks and snacks while keeping a watchful eye on the other flight attendant. Passengers began noticing the tension, though most did not understand the full story. At one point, Maya returned to the front of the cabin to retrieve more supplies. A few passengers leaned toward each other, whispering about the situation near the Collins family. Maya ignored the murmurs, focusing instead on her duties. She had always believed that professionalism combined with kindness could diffuse most situations, and she intended to prove it today. As the flight climbed to cruising altitude, Maya felt a surge of determination. She would not let the children feel unsafe. She walked back to the Collins row, offering a gentle smile. "Would anyone like a snack?" she asked, holding a tray. Ava reached for a cookie. Zoe chose an apple, and Eli took another juice box. Maya handed them each their choice, making small talk with soft, encouraging words. The children relaxed slightly, and Maya felt a flicker of hope. The other flight attendant watched from a distance, clearly frustrated that her attempts to create discomfort were failing. Maya continued her careful service, moving through the cabin with the calm assurance of someone who knew she was doing the right thing. Hours passed, and the flight continued smoothly. Maya's presence near the Collins children seemed to comfort them, though occasional glances at the other flight attendant reminded her that tension still lingered. She remained vigilant, ready to intervene if needed, but also careful not to escalate the situation unnecessarily. By mid-flight, it was clear to Maya that she was not just performing a routine duty. She had become a silent shield for the Collins triplets. Every smile, every kind word, every gentle gesture mattered. She watched as Ava and Zoe began to relax, laughing quietly at small jokes, while Eli leaned against his father, feeling safe. Maya's heart swelled with quiet pride. She had chosen this path, to protect and care, to make a small difference in someone's day. And now it had become personal. These children deserved safety, kindness, and respect, and she would do everything in her power to ensure they had it. As the sun began to set, painting the cabin in soft golden light, Maya moved once more to the Collins row. "How is everyone doing?" she asked gently. "Much better," Ava said, smiling. Zoe nodded. Eli gave her a small thumbs up. Maya's heart lifted. She knew the other flight attendant had been trying to make the children uncomfortable, but kindness had won, at least for now. Maya glanced around the cabin, observing the passengers. Most were absorbed in their own worlds, but a few had been quietly watching her. Sensing her dedication and courage, she felt a strange warmth and a mix of relief and pride. Yet deep inside, Maya knew this was only the beginning. The flight was far from over, and the tension she had sensed at the start had not fully disappeared. She braced herself, ready to face whatever came next, confident that standing up for what was right was worth any challenge. For Maya, today was not just another flight. It was a test of courage, of professionalism, and of heart. And as Flight 472 soared above the clouds, she silently promised herself that she would protect the Collins triplets no matter what, for as long as they were on her watch. Eli, the youngest of the triplets, sat quietly, eyes following every movement around him. He had grown used to flying, but something about today felt different. Ava and Zoe, the twins, whispered softly to each other, glancing nervously at the other flight attendant who lingered nearby. Her posture was sharp, her eyes cold, and her every movement seemed calculated to unsettle the children. Maya moved closer to the Collins row, her presence a gentle shield. She offered Eli another juice and smiled warmly. "Here you go, Eli. I think you might like this one too." But the other flight attendant was not done. She leaned slightly over the row, her voice calm but cutting. "Are you sure this is the right seat for him? Maybe he should be somewhere else." Eli's face crumpled slightly in confusion, and he glanced at his father. Robert Collins, seated firmly beside him, raised an eyebrow but said nothing immediately. He trusted Maya's judgment. Her professionalism had already made a strong impression. Maya's heart tightened. She knelt slightly to meet Eli's eyes. "Eli, it's okay," she said softly. "You're safe here. Don't worry about what she's saying." Ava and Zoe looked up at Maya with gratitude. "She's making him nervous," Ava whispered. "I know," Maya replied gently. "We'll make sure he's fine." The other flight attendant's expression darkened slightly, realizing that Maya's calm intervention was countering her efforts. She shifted her stance and muttered something to herself, clearly frustrated. Maya, however, remained composed, continuing to attend to the passengers in the front rows while keeping a watchful eye on the Collins children. A few passengers nearby began to notice the tension. A mother across the aisle glanced at Maya and the other flight attendant, her brow furrowed. "Is everything okay over there?" she asked politely. Maya smiled briefly. Yes, ma'am. Just making sure everyone is comfortable. The mother nodded but kept a careful eye on the scene. Other flight attendant avoided eye contact, her attempts to appear professional clashing with her obvious irritation. At one point, Eli fidgeted with his seatbelt, looking uncomfortable. The other flight attendant leaned in again, her voice low but sharp. You need to behave properly. Do you even know how to sit still? Eli looked down, his small hands gripping the armrest. Ava and Zoe exchanged worried glances. Maya felt a surge of protectiveness. She stepped forward calmly. Eli is doing just fine, she said firmly. Please leave him alone. He is comfortable and safe here, and we will make sure he stays that way. The other flight attendant hesitated, clearly caught off guard by Maya's courage. A few passengers nearby watched quietly, sensing the confrontation. Maya stood close, a steady presence, ready to intervene again if needed. Robert Collins finally spoke, his voice low but firm. Is there a problem here? He asked, looking directly at the flight attendant. She blinked, unsure how to respond. No, sir, she said, her voice clipped. I see, Robert said, his tone calm but carrying authority. He turned his attention to Maya. Thank you for taking care of my children, he said quietly. Maya felt a wave of relief. She had hoped Robert would notice, but hearing it directly from him gave her courage. She nodded politely, keeping her expression professional. The flight continued, but the tension had shifted. The other flight attendant seemed restrained now, her efforts to intimidate the children ineffective under Maya's steady presence. Eli slowly relaxed, leaning back into his seat with Ava and Zoe whispering softly to him. Maya stayed near the Collins row, offering small gestures of comfort. Would you like a story while we fly? She asked softly. Eli's eyes lit up. Yes, please, he said. Ava and Zoe smiled, relieved to see their brother's mood lift. Maya began telling a quiet story, her voice gentle and soothing. She noticed the other flight attendant glance toward them once, a frown forming on her face, but she quickly turned away, realizing her attempts were futile. Passengers around them watched subtly, admiring Maya's calm handling of the situation. She had managed to turn what could have been a tense and uncomfortable flight into something peaceful, at least for the Collins children. As the sun dipped lower, casting a warm glow through the plane windows, Maya continued her careful attention. She noticed that Eli was now fully relaxed, listening intently to the story, while Ava and Zoe leaned closer, hanging on her every word. At one point, Robert Collins approached Maya quietly. You've done more than just your job today, he said softly. You've protected my children, and I am grateful. Most people wouldn't have the courage to stand up like you did. Maya shook her head modestly. I just did what I thought was right, she said. No, Robert said firmly. This isn't just about right. This is about courage, and it doesn't go unnoticed. Maya felt a quiet warmth in her chest. It wasn't recognition she sought, but knowing that the children were safe and comfortable was enough. Still, hearing it from Robert meant something. The flight moved into its final hours, and the cabin lights dimmed for rest. Maya checked on the Collins children one last time before heading toward the galley. Eli had fallen asleep, his head resting gently against the seat. Ava and Zoe whispered quietly, comforted by the calm atmosphere. Maya allowed herself a small sigh of relief. The immediate tension had eased, but she remained aware that the other flight attendant could still try something. She kept her focus sharp, ready to step in if needed. The passengers settled for the long flight, some dozing, others reading or watching the in-flight entertainment. Maya moved quietly among them, ensuring everyone was comfortable and attending to any small requests. Her attention always returned to the Collins row, the triplets' safety her priority. Despite the challenges of the flight, Maya felt a sense of quiet pride. She had managed to protect the children without escalating the situation, keeping her professionalism intact while standing up for what was right. As the stars began to appear outside the plane windows, Maya glanced down at Eli, Ava, and Zoe. Their faces were calm, peaceful, and trusting. She knew that for a few hours she had made a difference in their world. But deep down, Maya sensed that the events of this flight were far from over. She had faced the first wave of tension, and she knew that challenges often came in layers. Still, she was ready. She would continue to protect these children, no matter what. And as Flight 472 soared through the night sky, Maya silently promised herself that she would not back down. that she would ensure the triplets felt safe, valued, and protected for the entire journey ahead. The cabin of Flight 472 had fallen into a quiet rhythm. Most passengers were reading, watching movies, or dozing quietly, but Maya remained vigilant. She moved smoothly through the aisle, offering drinks, answering questions, and checking on every passenger. Her eyes, however, were drawn repeatedly to the Collins family. The triplets were calm, but she could sense their unease lingering from the earlier confrontation. Eli sat quietly, fidgeting with a small toy plane, while Ava and Zoe whispered softly to each other. Their father, Robert Collins, sat tall and composed, watching over them, his eyes occasionally scanning the cabin. He had noticed Maya's careful attention to his children and felt grateful. There was something in her demeanor that spoke of professionalism and courage, a rare combination he had come to respect. But across the aisle, the other flight attendant had not given up. Her posture was rigid, and her eyes followed the Collins children with a cold, calculating gaze. She leaned closer to the row, lowering her voice just enough for Eli to hear. "You need to behave better," she said sharply. "This isn't the place for children like you." Eli's small hands gripped the armrest and he looked toward his father, uncertain. Ava and Zoe exchanged frightened glances, their earlier sense of comfort fading slightly. Maya's stomach tightened. She knew the situation had reached a tipping point. This was no longer subtle tension or whispered comments. It was blatant hostility directed at children. Maya took a deep breath and stepped forward, her expression calm but firm. She knelt slightly to meet Eli's eye level, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Eli," she said softly, "you are safe here. I won't let anyone make you feel uncomfortable." The other flight attendant turned sharply, her lips pressing into a thin line. "Excuse me?" she said, her voice tense but forced to be professional. "I heard what you said," Maya replied evenly. "It is not acceptable to speak to these children that way. They are my passengers and they deserve respect." Passengers nearby began to notice the confrontation. A few looked up from their screens, sensing the tension but not fully understanding the situation. Maya's voice remained calm, carrying authority without anger. She had learned long ago that control and composure were more powerful than raised voices. The other flight attendant's jaw tightened, and she looked away briefly, clearly frustrated by Maya's direct challenge. But she tried to regain composure. "I was only making sure the child understood the rules," she said, her tone defensive. Maya shook her head gently. "There are ways to guide children without making them feel small or unwelcome. You crossed that line. These children are here to travel safely and comfortably, and you will respect that." Eli blinked up at Maya, his small lips forming a tentative smile. Ava and Zoe's hands found hers, gripping them tightly for reassurance. Maya felt a surge of protective determination. She would not allow fear or prejudice to touch these children while she was present. From across the row, Robert Collins leaned slightly forward, his expression calm but piercing. He had been observing quietly, but now he spoke. "Is there a problem here?" His voice was low, firm, and carried authority. The other flight attendant froze, clearly taken aback by his presence. "No, sir," she said quickly, her tone clipped. Robert's gaze shifted to Maya. "You've been looking after my children," he said quietly. "I appreciate your attention and your courage. Most people would have ignored it." Maya felt her cheeks warm slightly but kept her composure. "I just did what was right, sir," she replied. "No," Robert said firmly. "This is not just right. It is courage and integrity. You stood up when others failed. That is rare." Maya nodded, silently grateful for his recognition but more focused on the children. Eli had relaxed slightly, leaning against his father while Ava and Zoe exchanged relieved glances. Maya knew the children felt safer with her presence, and that gave her strength. The other flight attendant took a small step back, clearly realizing that her attempts to intimidate the Collins children had failed. She avoided further interaction, but Maya remained alert. She continued to offer drinks, snacks, and small conversation, always returning to check on Eli, Ava, and Zoe. Passengers nearby whispered quietly among themselves, impressed by Maya's calm handling of the situation. One elderly woman leaned toward her neighbor. "She is so composed," the woman said. "I can't imagine how hard it must be to face that kind of behavior and stay so calm." Maya moved to the galley briefly to collect more supplies. She allowed herself a small breath of relief, but reminded herself that vigilance was still necessary. The other flight attendant could still create tension if not managed carefully. Returning to the Collins row, Maya knelt once more beside Eli. "Would you like a little story while we fly?" she asked softly. Eli's eyes brightened. "Yes, please," he said, smiling shyly. Ava and Zoe's faces lit up as well. Maya began telling a gentle story, her voice soft and soothing. She watched the children's expressions slowly change from unease to curiosity and calm. Even the smallest movements mattered, a nod, a smile, or a reassuring touch. And Maya made sure each gesture reinforced their sense of safety. The cabin lights dimmed for a short rest period, and Maya moved quietly among the passengers. She checked on their comfort, making small adjustments to pillows and blankets while keeping her attention on the Collins row. Eli had leaned against his father, drifting into a light sleep, while Ava and Zoe whispered quietly, sharing small jokes. Maya felt a sense of quiet pride. This was the moment she realized that her actions had made a real difference. Standing up for the children, speaking firmly and respectfully, had not only protected them but also maintained the peace in the cabin. Her professionalism had turned a tense situation into one of trust and comfort, but she remained aware that the flight was far from over. She could not let her guard down. The other flight attendant, though restrained, still carried an edge of irritation, and Maya knew that vigilance was necessary. A few passengers approached her discreetly, offering quiet words of appreciation. "Thank you for handling that," one woman said softly. "I don't think most people would have had the courage to step in." Maya smiled politely. "I'm just doing my job," she replied. But inside she felt a quiet sense of satisfaction. She was not only doing her job, she was standing up for what was right. As the flight continued, Maya moved back to the Collins row, quietly observing the children. Eli's small hands were now relaxed, and he even whispered a soft, "Thank you," as he drifted closer to sleep. Ava and Zoe leaned toward each other, whispering and giggling softly, their earlier tension replaced with comfort. Maya realized that this flight had changed something in her. She had learned that courage could come quietly, without raising a voice or causing a scene. Sometimes standing up for others meant being calm, composed, and ready to act at the right moment. Robert Collins noticed the change in his children. He glanced at Maya, his expression one of gratitude and respect. He had flown many times and had encountered many flight attendants, but none had shown the quiet strength and courage that Maya displayed. "She has done more than keep them safe," Robert thought. "She has shown them kindness and strength. That is a rare gift." As the hours passed, the plane continued on its journey smoothly. Maya remained alert, attentive, and ready. She knew that challenges could arise at any moment, but she also knew she had the ability to handle them. Her confidence in herself and her actions grew with each passing hour. By the time the meal service ended, the Collins children were calm, engaged, and relaxed. Maya had made small talk, offered gentle guidance, and ensured that their needs were met. Her presence had created a safe environment where they could feel secure despite the earlier tension. The other flight attendant, seeing her attempts thwarted, kept her distance. She was still on the plane, but she no longer posed an immediate threat. Maya, however, did not let her guard down. She understood that vigilance and care were ongoing responsibilities. As the sun began to set, casting a warm golden glow through the cabin windows, Maya took a moment to observe the scene. The children were quiet, content, and safe. Passengers were settled, and the tension that had filled the cabin earlier had dissipated. Maya felt a sense of quiet accomplishment. She had stood up for what was right, protected the children, and maintained her professionalism throughout. And while the flight still had hours to go, she knew that she had already made a meaningful difference. Standing there, watching the soft glow of sunset through the windows, Maya realized that courage did not always come in grand gestures. Sometimes it came in small, steady actions, in protecting those who could not protect themselves, and in speaking up when others failed to do so. And as Flight 472 continued its journey through the clouds, Maya silently promised herself that she would continue to stand up, continue to protect, and continue to act with courage and integrity for the rest of the flight, no matter what challenges lay ahead. The cabin lights of Flight 472 dimmed slightly as passengers settled into their seats for the long journey ahead. Maya moved quietly through the aisle, her eyes constantly scanning for any signs of discomfort or tension. The earlier confrontation with the other flight attendant had eased, but Maya remained vigilant. She knew that even small gestures could cause distress, and she was determined to ensure the Collins children felt safe throughout the flight. Eli, the youngest, was still adjusting. The earlier comments had unsettled him, and he clutched a small stuffed animal tightly. Ava and Zoe, the twins, whispered softly between themselves, their eyes darting occasionally toward the other flight attendant who lingered a few rows away, observing. Maya knelt beside the children once more, her expression calm and reassuring. "Eli," she said softly, "you're safe. Nothing will bother you while I'm here." Eli nodded, a small smile forming on his lips. "Thank you, Maya," he whispered. Ava placed a gentle hand on her brother's shoulder. "She's right, Eli," she said. "You don't need to worry," Zoe chimed in quietly. "Maya is looking out for us. That's all that matters." The other flight attendant noticed the shift. Her attempts to create tension had failed, and now the children seemed more confident, supported not just by their father, but by Maya's calm presence. She shifted uncomfortably, realizing her influence was slipping. Maya continued her careful attention. She offered snacks and drinks, making small conversation that allowed the children to relax. She asked about their favorite books, their hobbies, and even what games they liked to play. Slowly, laughter began to fill the space around them, soft, light, and reassuring. "Do you like stories?" Maya asked Eli gently. "Yes," he said quietly. "Can you tell me one?" Ava and Zoe's faces brightened and they leaned closer. Maya smiled. "All right," she said. "I'll tell you a story about 3 brave siblings who traveled through the stars." As she spoke, she wove a tale that captivated the children, involving adventure, courage, and kindness. She included small lessons about standing up for what was right, protecting those who could not protect themselves, and helping others in need. Eli listened intently, occasionally glancing at his father for reassurance. Ava and Zoe were fully engaged, their earlier fear replaced by curiosity and excitement. Passengers nearby began to notice the shift in the atmosphere. Some whispered to each other, commenting on how calmly and gently Maya handled the situation. One man leaned to his wife and said, "She has such patience. You can tell she truly cares." Maya continued the story, her voice steady and comforting. The other flight attendant tried to interject at one point, questioning Eli's behavior, but Maya intervened calmly. "Eli is doing just fine," she said firmly. "Please let him enjoy the story." The other flight attendant paused, clearly frustrated, and stepped back. Maya knew this was only a temporary reprieve, but she remained composed, focused on the children. Robert Collins watched silently, observing both Maya and his children. He was impressed by her composure and courage. Most people in her position would have avoided confrontation or worse, allowed the tension to escalate. Maya, however, had handled it with quiet confidence, protecting the children without drawing unnecessary attention. He leaned closer to his children and whispered, "See, they are safe. Nothing can bother you while she's here." Eli looked up at Maya with wide, trusting eyes. "I feel safe," he said softly. Maya's heart lifted. "That's good, Eli," she said. "You should always feel safe when you travel." The twins smiled, their earlier anxiety dissipating. "Thank you for helping him," Ava said quietly to Maya. Maya shook her head gently. "I'm just doing what anyone would do, but I'm glad I could help." The flight continued smoothly, though the other flight attendant lingered nearby, clearly watching every move. Maya remained calm, attentive, and ready to intervene if necessary. She offered small gestures of comfort, a smile, a kind word, or a small joke, and the children responded with growing confidence. As the hours passed, Maya noticed a subtle change in the other flight attendant. Her posture had become tense, her movements awkward. She was no longer attempting to engage the Collins children directly, but Maya remained vigilant. She knew that vigilance was key to maintaining a safe environment. At one point, Maya returned to the galley to collect more supplies. A few passengers whispered their appreciation for her patience and calm demeanor. "She's amazing," one woman said quietly to her companion. "I don't know how she does it." Maya smiled politely but remained focused on the task at hand. She knew that her responsibility extended beyond the immediate situation. She had to ensure the children remained calm and comfortable for the remainder of the flight. When she returned to the Collins row, Eli had drifted off to sleep, resting his head against his father. Ava and Zoe were whispering quietly, their faces relaxed and happy. Maya knelt beside them, adjusting their blankets and offering a reassuring smile. "You're doing great," she said softly. "Just relax and enjoy the flight." The twins smiled, their earlier fear completely replaced by comfort and trust. Maya felt a quiet sense of pride. She had succeeded in creating a safe and supportive environment for the children, and that was more important than any recognition or praise. Meanwhile, Robert Collins observed Maya's actions carefully. He was a man who valued courage, integrity, and professionalism, and he saw all of these qualities in her. He made a mental note to address the situation once the flight landed, knowing that such behavior, both good and bad, could not go unnoticed. As the cabin lights dimmed further for rest, Maya moved quietly among the passengers, checking on their comfort and offering assistance when needed. Her attention always returned to the Collins row, where the children were now relaxed and safe. Even the other flight attendant, though present, no longer posed a threat. Her attempts to intimidate the children had failed, and Maya's calm presence had neutralized the tension. Maya knew she had to remain alert, but she also allowed herself a small sigh of relief. The flight was long, and passengers settled into their routines. Some read books, others watched movies, and a few simply closed their eyes to rest. Maya continued to move quietly, offering drinks and snacks, answering questions, and providing gentle support wherever needed. As the sun began to set outside, casting a warm golden glow through the cabin windows, Maya glanced down at the Collins children. Eli slept peacefully while Ava and Zoe whispered quietly, laughing softly at small jokes. She realized that for these few hours she had made a meaningful difference in their world. Robert Collins approached her quietly, his expression one of gratitude and respect. "You've done more than keep them safe," and he said. "You've shown them kindness, strength, and courage. Most people wouldn't have done what you did today." Maya shook her head modestly. "I just did what I thought was right," she replied. "No," Robert said firmly. "This is not just right. This is exceptional. You stood up when others failed. That is rare, and it does not go unnoticed." Maya felt a quiet warmth in her chest. Recognition was not her goal, but knowing the children were safe and comfortable gave her a deep sense of satisfaction. She had acted with integrity, and that was worth more than any praise. As Flight 472 continued on its journey, Maya remained vigilant. She knew that her role was not yet over. The other flight attendant could still create tension, and the flight had several hours remaining. But for now, the children were safe, calm, and trusting, and that was enough to give Maya the strength to continue standing up, continuing to protect, and continuing to act with courage and care. The hours passed slowly aboard Flight 472, but Maya remained alert. Though the cabin had quieted and the Collins children were calm, she knew the other flight attendant was still somewhere in the plane, watching, waiting for a chance to regain control. Maya had learned over the years that such people rarely gave up easily, but she was determined to ensure that no passenger, especially children, felt unsafe. Eli had fallen asleep, his small body curled against his father. Ava and Zoe were whispering quietly, sharing small stories and laughing softly. Maya knelt beside them, adjusting their blankets and offering a gentle smile. She felt a quiet sense of relief. The children were safe, comfortable, and trusting, exactly as they deserved. From the other side of the aisle, the other flight attendant glanced toward the Collins family, her expression tight. She had failed to intimidate the children, and it frustrated her. She shifted awkwardly, clearly unsure how to proceed, but Maya knew that vigilance was still necessary. One wrong move could disrupt the peace she had worked so hard to create. Robert Collins, the father, observed quietly, his eyes sharp. He had flown many times and dealt with many situations, but Maya's calm and professional handling of the tension impressed him deeply. Every action she had taken, from her initial intervention to maintaining the children's comfort, demonstrated courage and integrity. As the flight began its descent, the atmosphere in the cabin changed. Passengers adjusted their seats, fastened seatbelts, and prepared for landing. Maya moved down the aisle one last time, checking on passengers and ensuring everything was in order. Her eyes naturally returned to the Collins family, where Eli was still sleeping and the twins were whispering excitedly about the flight. It was then that the other flight attendant made her final attempt. She stepped forward, speaking sharply enough for Maya and a few nearby passengers to hear. "Sir, I think these children have been given too much attention. Perhaps they don't need special treatment." Maya stepped immediately in front of the Collins row, her expression calm but firm. "Sir, these children are passengers. They deserve safety, respect, and comfort. That is my responsibility, and I take it seriously." Robert Collins's eyes narrowed, his calm authority now fully present. He rose from his seat, standing tall beside the children. "Is that clear?" he said, his voice low but powerful. The other flight attendant hesitated, realizing that she had crossed a line. "Yes, sir," she said, though her tone lacked confidence. "No," Robert said firmly. "I want you to understand. This behavior is unacceptable. My children are safe, respected, and treated with kindness on this flight. Any attempt to make them feel otherwise will not be tolerated." Passengers nearby watched silently, sensing the confrontation. There was a quiet tension in the cabin, but it was balanced by Maya's calm presence and Robert's authoritative stance. Maya turned slightly toward Robert. "Sir, thank you," she said quietly. "I just wanted to make sure they felt safe." Robert nodded. "You did more than that," he said. "You protected them when no one else would. That kind of courage and integrity does not go unnoticed." The other flight attendant shifted awkwardly, her attempts to challenge Maya clearly over. She avoided further interaction with the Collins children, realizing she had been outmatched by both Maya's professionalism and Robert's authority. As the plane touched down smoothly, passengers clapped softly, appreciating the skill of the crew. Maya continued her careful attention, helping passengers prepare to disembark while keeping the Collins children comfortable. Eli stirred slightly, waking to find his father's reassuring hand on his shoulder. Ava and Zoe held his hands, smiling quietly. Once the passengers began to leave the plane, Robert guided his children forward, taking a moment to speak to Maya privately. "You handled this flight exceptionally," he said, his voice sincere. "Your actions protected my children and maintained peace for everyone on board." "I cannot thank you enough." Maya shook her head modestly. "I just did what was right, sir," she said. "No," Robert said firmly. "This is not just right. This is courage, integrity, and professionalism. I will make sure the airline knows exactly how you handled this situation." Maya felt a mix of pride and relief. She had acted with care and courage, and now it was being recognized. But the flight was not fully over yet. The other flight attendants' behavior still needed to be addressed officially. Robert Collins approached the lead flight attendant and airline supervisor waiting on the tarmac. He explained the situation clearly and calmly, detailing the other flight attendants' attempts to intimidate the children and Maya's professional handling of the incident. The airline supervisor listened carefully, nodding. "We take these reports seriously," she said. "No passenger should ever feel uncomfortable, especially children. Thank you for bringing this to our attention." Robert turned to Maya. "You stay here," he said. "I will handle this. You've done more than enough." Minutes later, the airline's management team approached the flight crew, including the other flight attendant. Robert Collins was firm but polite as he recounted the events, emphasizing the importance of treating all passengers with respect, regardless of age or background. The other flight attendant's face flushed, and she attempted to explain herself, but Robert's calm authority and detailed account left no room for excuses. "Your actions were inappropriate," he said. "You made children feel unwelcome and uncomfortable. That is unacceptable." The airline management team nodded, taking notes. "We agree," the supervisor said. "We have reviewed the flight and the report. Your employment is terminated effective immediately." The other flight attendant looked shocked, her attempts to speak further silenced by the clear decision. She gathered her things silently, leaving the cabin under the watchful eyes of management and Robert Collins. Maya felt a quiet sense of relief. Justice had been served and the children had been protected. The passengers who had witnessed the incident offered quiet nods of appreciation and smiles, recognizing her courage and professionalism. Robert turned to Maya once more, his face serious but kind. "You have not only protected my children, but also upheld the values that make a great flight crew member. Today you showed courage, integrity, and care." "Thank you," Maya smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest. "I'm glad they are safe," she said softly. "That is all that matters to me." Eli, now fully awake, ran to Maya and hugged her small hands. "Thank you, Maya," he said, his voice full of sincerity. Ava and Zoe joined, smiling widely. Maya knelt to their level. "You're welcome," she said gently. "I'm glad you feel safe." Robert watched the scene, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. He had trusted the right person to protect his children, and Maya had exceeded every expectation. Her calm demeanor, courage, and professionalism had ensured that the flight ended without fear or discomfort for anyone. As passengers disembarked, Maya assisted the Collins family, helping with their belongings and ensuring they exited the plane safely. Robert shook her hand firmly. "You've made a lasting impression," he said. "I will personally make sure your actions today are recognized." Maya felt her heart swell with quiet pride. She had faced a challenging situation, protected children, and upheld her principles. And now her efforts were recognized and appreciated. As the Collins family walked away, Eli waved to Maya, his small hand raised in a gesture of gratitude. Ava and Zoe followed suit, their smiles bright and full of trust. Maya waved back, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. The airline supervisor approached her once more. "You handled this situation with professionalism and courage. We are grateful to have you on our team." Maya nodded politely, her mind reflecting on the events of the flight. She had learned once again that courage and integrity were powerful, even in the smallest acts. Standing up for what was right, protecting those who could not protect themselves, and acting with calm authority had made all the difference. And as she walked down the aisle one final time, ensuring the cabin was clear and ready for the next flight, Maya felt a quiet satisfaction. She had faced a challenge, upheld her principles, and made a meaningful impact on the lives of children and passengers alike. For Maya, today had been more than just a flight. It had been a test of courage, professionalism, and heart, and she had passed with honor. The airport buzzed with the usual sounds of rolling luggage, announcements, and distant conversations. Maya walked calmly through the terminal, her uniform neat, her expression composed. Despite the long hours aboard Flight 472, she felt a quiet satisfaction. The tense situation with the other flight attendant had been resolved. The Collins children were safe, and she had acted with professionalism and courage. As she approached the baggage claim area, she noticed Robert Collins waiting with his children. Eli, Ava, and Zoe were smiling. Their excitement about the flight mingled with relief that everything had turned out well. Robert glanced at Maya with an expression that mixed gratitude and admiration. "Thank you again, Maya," he said as she approached. "You have made a lasting impression on my family. I don't think I can ever fully express my appreciation." Maya shook her head gently. "I'm just glad the children are safe and comfortable," she replied. Eli ran ahead and hugged her again, his small hands gripping hers tightly. "Thank you, Maya," he whispered. Ava and Zoe joined, smiling broadly. Their trust and happiness were all the recognition Maya needed. Robert smiled, watching his children's genuine affection for Maya. He had flown many times and had seen many flight attendants, but none had demonstrated the level of courage, patience, and integrity that Maya had shown. He knew he wanted to ensure her actions did not go unnoticed. Later, as the family collected their luggage, Robert pulled Maya aside. "I've already spoken with the airline management," he said quietly. "They are preparing to formally recognize your efforts today. You stood up for what was right, protected my children, and handled a difficult situation with calm authority. That deserves acknowledgement." Maya felt a flush of warmth. Recognition had never been her goal, but knowing that her actions had made a real difference meant a great deal. She nodded politely, her expression calm. "Thank you, sir," she said softly. Robert smiled. "No, Maya, thank you. Most people would have stayed silent or ignored the problem. You faced it calmly and effectively. That is rare, and it is inspiring." The children tugged gently at her hands, eager for one more goodbye before heading to the car. "Will we see you again?" Eli asked, his voice hopeful. Maya knelt to their level. "Maybe someday," she said gently. "But always remember, courage and kindness are the most important things you can show others, just like you saw today." Ava and Zoe nodded, their faces serious but understanding. "We'll remember," they said together. As the Collins family left the terminal, Maya watched them go, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. She had acted with integrity, protected those who could not protect themselves, and maintained her professionalism under pressure. Those were the moments that truly defined her work, and she felt proud of what she had accomplished. Later, Maya returned to the airline office. Management was waiting, prepared to formally acknowledge her efforts. The supervisor smiled warmly as Maya entered. "We reviewed the reports and passenger feedback," the supervisor said. "Your actions on Flight 472 demonstrated exceptional professionalism, courage, and dedication. The airline is formally recognizing your service today. You will receive a commendation for your actions, and your professionalism will be highlighted as an example for other staff." Maya felt a quiet sense of pride. She had always taken her job seriously, but this acknowledgement meant that her actions had truly mattered. She nodded politely. "Thank you," she said. "I'm just glad the passengers, especially the children, were safe and comfortable." The supervisor smiled. "That is exactly why we are recognizing you. Courage and professionalism are the qualities we value most, and you exemplified them today." Maya left the office feeling a sense of calm accomplishment. The events of the flight, from the initial tension to the final resolution, had tested her skills, patience, and courage. She realized that these experiences were not just about following procedures. They were about making a real difference in people's lives. As she walked through the terminal, she reflected on the Collins children. Eli's trust, Ava and Zoe's quiet confidence, and their genuine gratitude had left a lasting impression on her. She understood that protecting passengers went beyond ensuring physical safety. It was about creating an environment of trust, care, and respect. Maya thought about the other flight attendant as well. The experience had reinforced the importance of standing up when others behaved improperly. Courage was not always about confrontation. Sometimes it was about calm authority, careful observation, and consistent professionalism. She had learned that one person's commitment to doing what is right could make a significant difference. Later that evening, Maya returned home. She reflected on the day while sitting quietly in her apartment, the city lights glowing softly outside her window. The flight had been long and challenging, but it had reaffirmed her belief in integrity, courage, and kindness. She knew that her actions had protected children and created a safe environment for passengers, and that knowledge brought her a deep sense of fulfillment. Maya's phone buzzed. A message from the airline supervisor appeared. "Formal commendation has been processed. Your actions on Flight 472 are an example for all staff. Congratulations." She smiled quietly, feeling a warmth in her chest. Recognition was nice, but the true reward had been knowing that the children felt safe and valued. The thought of Eli, Ava, and Zoe's trust and appreciation brought her a sense of quiet pride. The next day, Maya returned to work with renewed focus. She carried herself with the calm assurance that comes from knowing one has done the right thing. Passengers noticed her attentiveness, and colleagues respected her professionalism. The events of Flight 472 became a quiet story among the crew, a testament to courage, integrity, and dedication. In the days that followed, Maya received letters from passengers who had observed her handling of the situation. Many expressed gratitude for her professionalism and calm demeanor, noting how it had positively affected the atmosphere of the flight. Each message reinforced the lesson that small acts of courage and care could create meaningful change. Maya placed the letters carefully in her office, each one a reminder of the impact she could have. She understood now more than ever that her role was not just about safety and service. It was about creating trust, offering reassurance, and standing up for what was right. She thought about the Collins family again. Robert Collins' calm authority, his gratitude, and the children's genuine trust had left a lasting impression. Maya realized that those few hours on Flight 472 had been more than just a routine assignment. They had been a test of courage, patience, and professionalism. She had passed with honor. Reflecting on the experience, Maya felt a quiet determination. She knew that challenges would continue to arise in her career, as they did for everyone. But she also knew that with calm courage, integrity, and care, she could make a meaningful difference no matter the circumstances. As the sun set over the city, Maya looked out her window, feeling a sense of peace. Flight 472 was over. The children were safe, and the actions she had taken would not be forgotten. She understood that courage came in many forms, sometimes in bold action, sometimes in quiet professionalism, and often in simple acts of care and attention. For Maya, that day would remain a defining moment. It had tested her skills, her patience, and her resolve. But it had also reaffirmed her belief in the importance of standing up for what is right, protecting those who could not protect themselves, and acting with integrity. And as she prepared for the next flight, Maya carried with her the lessons of Flight 472, that true courage and professionalism were about more than following rules. They were about making a difference, creating trust, and showing care. Eli, Ava and Zoe's smiles, Robert Collins's gratitude, and the passenger's quiet acknowledgement would remain with her always. And Maya knew, deep in her heart, that she would face future challenges with the same calm strength and courage that had defined her on Flight 472. It was not just a flight. It was a moment that had tested her heart, her mind, and her resolve. And she had risen to the challenge. And for Maya, that was worth more than any commendation, recognition, or reward.